My journey started back in 2006. Actually, one of the slides I'll put out to you, because I now have remembered by looking on LinkedIn what day I actually joined the platform, because I often get asked, and it's just, oh, I must remember how to find that out. So I've added it as a slide today, so you can also find out exactly when you joined. It's easy to find out when you connected with people, but yes, it's hidden in the menu as to when you actually joined the platform. 2006 for me. 2008 was my big sea change. At the age of 48, I wasn't made redundant. My job was, but of course I was in it, therefore I was the victim of it. And at the age of 48, I had to go and find a job. No ageism in this country at all, is there? Yes, unfortunately there is a lot of ageism in this country, and at 48 I was deemed to be old. So all the traditional methods of finding a job were no longer working. In fact, when I found an executive job club, they told us that about 70% of all the jobs that we saw and were applying for didn't actually exist. That was a bit of a blow. So what did we have to do? We had to go networking, and we had to use LinkedIn. And yeah, that hit home with me. I was on it, but was I using it? Like most people, I put up my CV and left it and hope people would come and find it. It didn't work. I got out and about networking with the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce, which is in my local chamber, which I eventually then worked for. We were allowed places at their events, and in the third month, a LinkedIn trainer came along and blew me away. His knowledge was fantastic, and that's where my journey started, because he assisted me over a 5-week period of learning how to use it, but also connected me to a group of LinkedIn trainers all over the world, and I still use them for the information that I get. That's where I got to where I am now. Started my company about 3.5 years ago. First year was fun. Got imposter syndrome, kissed a few frogs, did some things wrong, but because I'd had a good grounding and had money in the bank, it didn't put me under any pressure. So to the presentation. I was going to say ladies and gentlemen there, but I can't. The lady's not in the room. Are we seeing that, first of all? Yep, we are. Good. Okay. So yeah, very quick potted history, to say. It started in America, as most things do. 4 people in the HR space created it in May 2003, so it's just turned 18 this year. Came across into this country a little bit later, and then they established an office in the UK in 2008. Don't bother trying to communicate with them, because it's like throwing mud at a brick wall. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. They don't answer much in the way of stuff that you send them, unfortunately. 2012, as it was growing, and let's face it, it is a database, it grew to a size where the larger companies now started taking more interest in using it, other than it being a recruitment platform. It is seen as other things. And like most things, the big companies adopt it, it filters down to everyone else. And that was kind of the change we saw. People are now using it for marketing and many other different things. 2 other points along the timeline. 2016, that little known company called Microsoft looked down the back of their sofa and found 26.2 billion, and therefore purchased LinkedIn. Good thing, bad thing? Yeah, there's arguments for both sides. The interface, I think, certainly was improved. Some of the functionality was compromised, and to this day, some of them haven't been put back to where they should be. And we are still asking them on a regular basis to put that right. And then something that wasn't sort of official, and it coincides with when I launched my company, and I'd love to say that had something to do with it, but no, it's a complete coincidence. As it grew and grew and grew into a larger and larger and larger database, and it was definitely seen as a professional platform for business, the people that dealt with Instagram and Facebook and all those sort of things couldn't really do any deep diving. Therefore, it got split away from social media. Yes, I'll admit it has got an element of social media, but it's not seen in the same light as those by many, many different companies. Latest figures show that there are 774 million user accounts. LinkedIn claimed that they were in 200 countries. That's interesting. All right, 200 countries in the world. So I've dumbed it down a bit to 190, slightly few, but it's in most countries. And in the UK, the figure sits at around about 32 million. Like the 774, are they all being used? No. But as I've said before, and I'm sure I said on here, that this year LinkedIn are having a good tidy up. The last figure I've mentioned was 37 million accounts have disappeared off LinkedIn because they have deleted them. This was mainly for infringements of the user agreements that I and probably everyone else in this room never looked at when we joined. We just ticked the box and got on and uploaded our CV and sat there. Yeah, they're now using that, saying, well, you've infringed it, therefore we have the rights to close your accounts. Mainly the people that are using and supplying third-party software, the scrapers and all the helpers and things like that. Yeah, that's one of the biggest ones, and they are certainly the biggest victims of it. But where there's people using more than one account, they can trace, they will happen for that as well. So in my eyes, it's been good because there have been a good tidy up of the people we don't really want on the platform. So here you go. Yes. So I was looking earlier. Well, when did I join? So I quickly put this slide together this morning, and this is, and the slides will be available. I'll put them to David to pass out. This is where you find it. So it's in your settings and privacy, and 3 or 4 lines later, you eventually find out. And mine was November the 13th, 2008. That's when I actually joined the platform. But yeah, you can find out where you did it. Actually, it's 2006 or 2008. Just thought I'd throw that in there for anyone who's interested, anyone going to get asked or just curious about it, to be honest with you. The LinkedIn app. The LinkedIn app is different, okay? It does run different algorithms. It has a different interface. And there are things on the LinkedIn app that you can do that you cannot do on the desktop version. One that kind of came, big fanfare, a lot of talk about it, a lot of posts about it, LinkedIn stories, which is very much a Facebooky, Instagrammy type thing. I don't hear anything about it at all anymore. Probably because I didn't think much of it in the first place. And a lot of people also had a little dabble, realized it wasn't amazingly effective. If you haven't seen it, it's on the app. It used to be sat at the top, loud and proud, but now it's further down. You can record short stories on video, but as I say, it didn't really take off. No one is that interested in it. For some companies, again, it's a bit like Instagram. For me, it's a bit pointless. Other companies, it definitely something they should do. So it's something to have a look at. But as I say, I wouldn't waste too much time looking. Other things, yeah, QR code. So when we go back to doing some physical networking, and hopefully we'll meet all together one stage in the near future, I don't want to be taking people's business cards. I didn't take many in the first place. I don't want to handle the business cards. You don't have to. There is a QR code and a scanner built into your app. From the top up here, click on it and it opens up, and say there's 2 tabs. You can either show them the code or you can scan their code. What it does is it takes you through to that person's profile. It does not, I'll underline this, it does not connect you to them. You have then the option to connect to them. And if you're in the same room as them, you don't have to worry about obviously personalizing it, which I would insist that you do at other times. But you don't have to touch a card, you can bang on it. Plus, if the guy is called Dave Smith, there's quite a few Dave Smiths you might have to trawl through before you actually find him. But using this, you'll go straight to his particular profile. And the other thing I have a lot of fun with, and David's been the victim of this a few times, messaging on the desktop, you type away and you send a message. On the app, you have 2 other options. You can send an audio clip. So to the right of where you would type the message, there's a microphone. Yeah, you can record a voice message in there. I think they've now extended it to 90 seconds because I've certainly gone past a minute recently and I didn't get stopped. But for me, actually, the better one, the more impact one, the one I've been using recently is the video. And you click on the plus button, it comes up at the top, you'll notice the word video. You click on that and it allows you to record a video. First thing you've got to do is to change the lens back towards you. And when you've recorded it, it plays it back. You have the option to re-record it if you haven't quite got it right, etc. send them out as messages. So some of the stuff I've been doing recently about getting people into my workshops, for people that are first-line connections, I've been sending them little videos, which is quite disruptive because they're not used to seeing them. So they'd open them and have a look. And I've already got 2 bookings by doing that to my workshop, so it can be quite useful. And also for me, I don't know about other people, but sometimes I don't understand the meaning of someone's text message. I don't really understand what they mean by it. But if I hear their voice saying it, and certainly if I see them talking it, I stand much more chance of understanding it. So those are a couple of things on the app I think are quite useful that you may or may not know about. Right, let's move forwards away from the app. Yeah, you've heard me bang on about it before. I talk a lot about it when I go networking, and that is the 7-second syndrome. And quite simply, it's apart from it being a lie, it is the average attention span of a person when they look at a website. And of course, your LinkedIn profile is a website page. And so the same thing applies. If you don't engage people in what is really 5.5 seconds, but I like 7-second syndrome just trips off the tongue. It's a lot nicer. If you don't engage people in that time, the chances are they may click away from your profile and go and look at someone else's. One of the main reasons for this is that people do not do searching very effectively. It's a database. So whenever I mention to people, Boolean searches and plus and minuses and the speech marks, etc., I get some vacant looks. They're putting in some generic terms. So if you're a business coach, people put a searching for a business coach. Yeah, the answer's in the millions. So there's plenty of other people that they can look at. So if your profile doesn't engage them, they got other people, and they will click onto them pretty much if you don't engage them within that 7 seconds. But what do they look at? Well, in that 7 seconds, from the generic search, they look at your banner, they look at your headshot, they look at your headline, and if they get to your about section, you're doing okay. As I say, it could be a very large pool that you're swimming in if they put a very generic search in there. So yeah, how many people are in your keyword search? Little exercise for you to do is whatever you think you are, whatever you would put in to search for yourself, got your computers open now, stick it into the search engine at the top, push the old key, and then, yeah, just double click onto the people key, and it will then tell you the number of people that are coming up in that search. Without using any of the filters, the number is going to be very high. It's going to be, if you're in the tens of thousands, well done. But likelihood is that many people are going to be in hundreds, if not millions. If you don't get a chance to do it now, certainly have a look later, and then realize that the keywords are very, very important. As I say, you don't want to be swimming around in a very large pond. Something I work on with a lot of my clients is the keyword. But yeah, defining your keywords, highly important. Make sure, and you're probably going to have to go to a potentially 3 words rather than 2. When you found those keywords, yeah, people are going to put the searches in, they're going to find you. And as I said before in that graphic, what are they looking at? Yeah, well, this is a slightly older version of mine, but it's still pretty accurate. Yeah, the banner, the headshot, the headline, and finally, the first 3 lines of your about section are all visible to people on any platform or on any device. And those are the things that people will look at. And of course, the order is because the banner's at the top. People will start at the top and work their way down. Also, I'm of the opinion that people are visually orientated, therefore they will look at, and certainly when I'm putting out posts and things like that, I always include an image because I just believe more people will spot the image than not. I ask this of all my clients on a regular basis, and most of them concur. That's what catches their eye. So it needs to tell a story. Unfortunately, in this particular case, I see this far too often. This is the new, I say new, it's the updated LinkedIn banner. They went all pastely last year, and they revamped the whole site. And I think they basically had some interns in and had a spare time and just got them to through it up, because functionality didn't change at all. So this is the standard LinkedIn banner. Of course, for the lady who I've just met, we've spoken about this and she will be working on it, but it doesn't tell people anything at all about what it is that she does. Very large visual area right across the top of her profile. So we are looking at something along the lines of this. There is one issue with this particular banner, and I'll ask in a second what people think it is. But mostly the stuff on the right-hand side, the text means that you're under no illusion. It's a bit like what's above my head here. If this is my LinkedIn banner and you're looking for someone to help you on LinkedIn, you kind of know that you're in the right place, should I say. It's confirmation to people that they're in the right place. And I always say to people, so we're, a lot of us in the room are speakers. You could put a picture of you up on stage talking. That's going to give people a good clue you're a speaker. But unless you're on stage and there's a big banner behind saying what it is you're talking about, they may not know what you specialize in. So even at that stage, I may put some words on that banner. Same with photographers. I work with a lot of photographers, and they will have a picture of them taking a photograph. Yeah, unless the actual subject matter is in the shot. Again, we're not really too sure what they specialize in. So just don't be too generic on it at all. So open up your microphones and tell me what's wrong with this banner.
Can't see all of his face.
I'm just
Getting
thinking,
close. Getting close.
when it goes up, this circle with your headshot in, isn't that going to cover his face on the picture?
Spot on. Yeah, it's he was made aware of it when he did it, and yeah, his headshot, when that goes on top of the banner, will hide anything on that side. So this also is something to be aware of, is that when you look at someone's profile on a laptop, desktop, etc., that headshot, which we'll come to next, is about 55% of the height of the banner. But actually, when you do it on the app, it's 75%. Therefore, it also covers a lot more. Be aware of that. So if you do make some changes to your banner, have a quick look on your app to see if your messaging or your logo or that is being hidden behind it, because it possibly could be. They increased it quite. I understand why they did it, because people needed to see the person's headshot, and obviously the screens on phones, although they're getting bigger, they're not the same size as a laptop. So yeah, it needs Dave to put your thumbs up, so he's obviously clears, etc. So yeah, it's a consideration that you probably don't put anything that is necessary over there. Professional headshots only. Again, this is an area of contention. I get kicked back on this all the time. And the reason I say professional, we'll come to in a minute. But again, I like starting with the bad, then correcting it. So again, the one on the left. Why do I not like the one on the left? I know Peter's going to know the answer because he's smiling away. But what's wrong with it? There's more than one thing wrong with that, but what is wrong with that picture on the left-hand side of the gentleman?
His nipple will be the center of the shot, not his face.
As a videographer speaking, who's looking at the composition side of things. Yeah, it isn't the rule of thirds either, but no, we won't go to that. That's not one I've ever had before, so that's quite unique as an answer. But there are more common ones I get. Anyone want to come up with those?
He doesn't look like he's working. He may be at some sort of party or something. He doesn't look like he's doing his job.
Yeah, that's one that comes up regular. Anything else?
Not a headshot.
Yeah, yeah, spot on. It's not a headshot. So whenever I go through this one, Vaibhav, you're quite right. I say to people, I think he's at a wedding reception at a nice hotel, gone out in the garden, someone's taken a picture of him, and he's decided to use that as his headshot. It looks unprofessional. Hands in his pocket. Actually, I might be just old-fashioned. That immediately turns me off. I don't want to see that for what is supposed to be a professional platform. And yeah, because it's a full height, you can't actually make out its features. You know, you're seeing it on, I don't know what size screens everyone's using in there. I mean, some of you will have the 24-inch Max, no doubt. But even on a 15-inch screen, it's quite small. And on a phone, you're not going to see it at all. It's going to be blurred. So yeah, it just doesn't work on any level whatsoever. The one on the right, I see this used now and again. And again, it doesn't work for me. Why wasn't it work for me, do you reckon?
You don't know the person.
Yeah. So what does this person do? The answers to that normally come back as, oh, were they an optician? No. I know who this is.
A Knight of the Round Table.
Well, actually, there is a film reference in here. And
yeah, Galahad.
If anyone's seen Kingsman,
Kingsman,
exactly what I'm talking about. It's a Kingsman logo. Galahad is the character. And he wears glasses. Is this the actor? Is it his profile? Do I know him? No, I don't. It is someone I know who has got absolutely nothing to do with that film. Not on production team, not in the cast. I really have no idea. It doesn't help. And yeah, biggest thing is it's not a headshot. So logos and things like that, again, it's a no-no. You shouldn't be using them. We want to see, and the reason I say professional is, yeah, okay, so some of the creatives will say, well, you want to be able to see my personality, etc., etc. But the stark facts of the matter are that you get about 12 times more engagement if you have one of those really boring ones like I have, which is head and shoulders against the plain background. Looking into, that's one I've picked up on recently. I've looked at a few people's profiles where they're actually facing out of the profile. And that can actually be disrespectful in certain cultures. David.
Sorry, can you say that again? How many times greater are they likely to engage with you with a normal headshot?
Well.
Wow. So would you suggest me not having my sort of...
We had this discussion before, and I think it's one that is, because you're known for that, it's part of your branding. Okay, we see it a lot. But what about the other 773 million people that don't know you, that may want to book you? It's a debate. I understand when if it's part of your branding, your image, then yes, it makes sense to put it in there. But I then sort of flip the coin over and saying, although you know people may have a very 30,000 is the maximum number of connections you can have, but obviously some people will be known by more than that. But there are a lot of other people out there that might put a search in for what you do, find you, and might be put off by it. It's a consideration. Just, you know, it's one of those ones. Yeah, test it, change it for a month and see what happens. If it doesn't make much of a difference, go back to your branded one.
I'd say psychologically we're pre-programmed to look at faces. Even babies, you give some images in front of them and they look at the faces, and they even look, if you give them two images, they look at the prettier face. Every single, because they've done this where they flash pictures up and the baby just looks at the prettier face. So people are pre-programmed to look at faces.
Is that why babies hype me so much? David, just on that, I'm just looking at your profile. You've already got on your banner, you've got the blue sort of thing, and you've got your face on there. So you've kind of already got your image in there. So yeah, as Tony says, give it a try with a normal.
Yeah,
See if it makes it.
Do it for a month without it and see what happens. But yes, 12 times engagement is the statistics. It was 14, so it has come down a little bit. It's still, I'd rather have the engagement than actually have a picture of me by my red Italian sports car with a bottle of champagne in my hands, which I have seen. Some people think it's quite good. I'm successful. No, you're not. Right, okay, moving on. So yes, examples of some good headshots. Someone in the room should be smiling at this because they've appeared on the screen in front of me. Yeah, both these people have got white space behind them, head and shoulders, and they're both smiling. Therefore, this is the sort of headshot that people are looking for. I say smiling, you know, some people might say it's unprofessional, but actually, do you want to engage with someone who looks miserable? No, I think we want to see the smiling Mike looking at us. So these are the sort of things that I would suggest that we're aiming at. And then your headline. Yeah, if I had a pound for every time I've said this, I probably wouldn't have to do much in the way of work. It's moved on. it isn't any longer just what you do, your job title. It changed quite a long time ago, but even now I come up regularly with people that have just got that job title, you know, regional director at the Alpha Group. I know this guy, he's given me permission to use it because he has changed it. But regional director at the Alpha Group International, kind of, so what? What's a regional director do? What do the Alpha Group International do? It's a hangover from the old CV days, which really was perfectly acceptable to have it in there. Now, being LinkedIn, what they've done is they've changed lots of criteria within the platform on a regular basis. But, you know, dear Alan, we are just about to make these changes. We thought we'd let you know in advance. Is an email that Alan's never going to get. None of us are. They just don't do it. Therefore, you kind of stumble across it, or you just don't know it's there. So they changed the character count to 220. So use it. Use the 220 if you want to. This, you know, gives a description of what the person does. But one thing I do with a lot of my clients is I use the word consider, because I do it and some of my clients do it. Therefore, I think it's something that's worth considering. I'm not saying you must do it, but we ask a question, and a question where our ideal client is going to be going, oh, yes. And mine might be, because 8% of my clients use me because they want to generate some more leads from LinkedIn. Would you like your LinkedIn profile to generate you more leads? At the screen, they're going, yes. And then I can throw some other things in there. Maybe a credibility statement like, as a LinkedIn profiler for the last 15 years. Okay, so the old gets been on it quite a while. And then some outcomes, because again, this is a website page and people are, what's in it for me? So if I put in there, I can show you how to spend a lot less time on LinkedIn to get far better results. They're interested because that's the sort of outcomes that a lot of my clients are looking for. Yes, it's a headline that sits underneath your name, but also it follows you around LinkedIn. Your headshot and your headline will appear. So I've looked at a couple of people this morning. Obviously Mike's, as I lifted his headshot this morning. He'll notice that I viewed his profile today, and he will see my headshot and he'll see my 220 characters. But actually, more importantly, when I go and post a comment on someone's feed, it goes there as well. So people can actually see my headshot and can see the 220 characters without coming anywhere near my profile. If I'm asking questions that actually they see and read and they like, and they do, people click on and come onto my profile because they've seen the headline on someone else's comment. It's just another way of attracting traffic towards me. It works, it's effective, and I've been doing it for quite a while. When they come on, yeah, this is again when the banner comes into, because these people definitely don't know you from Adam. They've just seen that, interested, and they're hit with a banner much like the one behind my head, which will tell them in next to no time, if they're looking for someone on LinkedIn training, then this is particularly someone who might be able to help me. That again, that's why using clever shots on your banner is very good if people know you, but if they don't, you kind of got to be, go American, not go Rhino, but go American. Forget your British, don't be subtle. Just tell people what it is, what you're specialist at. We're not worried about the people that know us. It's the other, say, best part of 774 million that don't, that may find us, that I want to attract. He's gone one step further. He's put a call to action there, which again is perfectly acceptable. It really is just getting a balance for those 220 characters to see what works best for you. Then the first 3 lines of your about section belong to the viewer. And again, I have a little virtual bet with everyone I go through and giving hints and tips to, which this is a big part of it. And I say, I bet that you've got the word I in the first 3 lines, possibly even the first word. I bet you a virtual fiver you have. 85% of the time, that virtual fiver is in my back pocket because people have the word I firmly in there. And this is it, a typical, I deliver inspirational talks, blah, blah, blah. It's talking about themselves, where actually the first 3 lines still belong to the viewer. So asking them questions, do you struggle with all the sort of things where your ideal client is going to be going yes to. Also, another mistake here, the first 3 lines have the ... see more at the end of it. you don't put anything in those lines, it still has it there. So use them. Don't put any gaps. The first 3 lines should be underneath each other, and continue to ask those questions. So mine might be, you know, been on LinkedIn for a while, just frustrated, not too sure how to handle connections, all the sort of things I know people are frustrated and need help with. So when they get to the end of that 3rd line and they see the ... see more, they kind of need to know more because they're interested. I've asked them the questions to get them engaged. So how can this chap actually help me? So that's what that 7 seconds is all about, making sure people driven down and then engage with you. Because I say, I'm sorry, you know, a lot of business coaches bang on about USPs. You haven't got one. I've been looking at profiles for 15 years. Hundreds of thousands of them, 5 people in that period of time have demonstrated a unique selling point to me. No one else has. So just understand that when someone puts a search in for what you do, you're not going to be the only result, and it could be a very large number. But that's the top end, and that's driving it down to the about. But when they get to the about section, and this is an example of a good one. Do you want? Do you? There's a lot of things in there. And at that end of it, as a business expert, I work with businesses of all sizes. And yeah, it makes me want to push the see more button. That's the whole point of it. But when we get to, yeah, how many eyes in your first 3 lines? I added that one in there because it'd be interesting to see, again, if anyone's actually brave enough to look at theirs at the moment in time and tell me how many eyes appear in their first 3 lines. Alan's obviously a 0 because he's fist pumping at the screen. But anyone else in the room is going to admit to having some eyes in there. Don't, actually, I won't make you stand up, but just think about it. If you've got any eyes in there, one might be acceptable towards the end, but if they're littered across the first line, then yeah, you'd probably miss the point slightly on that one. But yeah, let's have a little look and have a see. We get to the about section, and yet again, LinkedIn made some changes, and they increased it from 2,000 characters to 2,600 last year. And again, that little email didn't get into Mike Grocot's inbox because they never sent it, and no one else got it either. What it means is that you've got a bit more room to add a bit more in there. So once you get past the first 3 lines we've got here is it's all about the person. It then flips over and it's about you, but not in an overly salesy way, because we don't like that sort of thing. We also don't like people who just have continuous text with hardly any line breaks. We need to see some white space, make it look as though it is easily to read. So bullet points are a great way of splitting things up, but also emphasizing. Why not do some bullet points about what are the specialities that you bring? But more importantly, potentially, is what's the benefits of using you? So, you know, put those in there. I mentioned 2 earlier for me. I save people time by getting better results. Highlight those in bullet points, why don't you? It makes sense to do so. If you help companies grow or save money, put that in there. Figures that were really useful as well. Mike.
How did you get the bullet points in then, Tony?
Yeah, I got asked this question yesterday. Well, obviously, if you're a Mac user, you've got access to a little key on your keyboard, and you can put all these fancy things in there. No, they are just dots or lines. There is no, the actual, what you can do is rubbish. It really is. Actually, the editing facilities within LinkedIn are shit. So you're going to have to use lines or something like that. If you've got a Mac, yes, you can put these, as this gentleman has, you can put in some fancy icons in there.
Just put a link in. When I want to put icons in, I copy and paste them from that website.
Yeah, be careful, because if you do that,
It takes a lot more characters, doesn't it?
It eats up more characters and completely screws up the analytics. So be careful when you do that.
Is there any way of putting links in the about as well, or not?
Right. Okay, we'll come to that on the next slide, probably. So you talk about yourself, what you do. You may have put in some bullet points. You may have put in those bullet points about, you know, what are the benefits of using you. 2 other things really work quite well. At the top here, bit of social proof. Drop a testimonial where it says, yeah, I worked with Peter and the results were fantastic. It gives you social proof. And for someone who doesn't know you, it elevates the whole of your profile. Someone is giving you this social proof. It's not just you saying what you do. Really important. And at the bottom, call to action. Again, this is one I really have a lot of time spent on, working with people on the call to action side of things, because ultimately they've spent a couple of minutes reading, you've engaged them if you set it up properly, and then you either confuse them or you don't tell them what the next steps are. So one of the very limited functions, Mike, is you can actually put the capitals lock on and it will do that. One of the few things. So my call to action, I say to people, is along the bottom line with a caps lock on, just tell them what the next stages are. Now, in my experience, what most people are happy to do is to email you. So my suggestion always is to people, if you do a free 15-minute consultation, wherever it is, just say, for a free 15-minute consultation with Alan, email Alan at blah, 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 because I know people are more likely to do that. Ask them to call you. And although apparently these tiny things we have in our pockets make phone calls, most people don't know how to use that function, long forgotten. And if they do use that function, are you going to be available? Likelihood, probably not. Then there's an answer phone involved, and who here likes talking to answer phones? Yeah, no one really does. So that's not a great option. Pointing people at your website, so putting a link into your website. You may have a contact page on your website. They may fill it in, probably won't. So I don't bother. Also, you can't put a link in there. And also, if you send people away from LinkedIn by putting links into free text, you pretty much are upsetting them. They don't like it because they don't come naturally back into LinkedIn when they come out, they click off the website that they're in. So I would always say avoid putting any links into free text unless there's a certain trick I can show you on doing it in posts. So the simplest solution, yeah, I know that people are happy to email. They think they've made a commitment, ask them to email. All I would say is that probably don't jump on the email and send it straight back to them because it might scare them, because that's also a reason they don't want to ring you in the first place, is you might answer the phone. Oh, I've got to talk to the person. So yeah, once you put that call to action at the bottom, you give them an option that they're happy to take. They might just take it, and then you've got engagement. And that really, is what the whole LinkedIn is about, getting engagement. Don't forget to use the new feature section. It's not new anymore. I might have to change that, but I might not, because I still see a lot of people don't have it. And again, this is one of the sections that LinkedIn added when Microsoft took over. So at the top of your profile, if you're looking at it, you'll see what used to say add profile section, but recently has just changed to add section. Again, an intern obviously didn't have anything to do that day, and they've got them to do that. In their features section, you have a plus button, shuffle, and an edit button. What it allows you to do is to do 4 things. You can put a post in there, an article. You can put a link. So this is the safest place to put the links in, Mike, or you can upload some media. I don't quite see the point of posts, because posts are very much of the moment and should basically go through your feed and out, and that's done with. Articles, yes. I mean, this is my most recent article. I always pin it in there because articles are positioning documents and therefore not just for the day that they're published. Links to websites. Yeah, this one on the edge here, it's a video. And again, if you're going to put a video on there, because the featured engine will always bring them back in after they've gone to it, a bit like your website, I would always have your website as one of these in here. People click on it, they go to your website, and when they finish, it'll come back into LinkedIn. It's the same with YouTube, but if you're better off if you use Vimeo. LinkedIn don't like YouTube. Vimeo, they're quite happy with. But in constraints of this, I must admit all my videos are recorded and are held on my desktop. And once I upload those to my posts and other sections on LinkedIn, I know there's absolutely no issues, because LinkedIn aren't particularly fussed about that. In fact, that's what they're looking for. When you click add a video, it will go and say, where on your desktop is it? It's giving you a very large hint there. It doesn't want a URL cut into it. So the feature section adds a bit of indexing, adds a bit of interest to the people. I definitely suggest it's something, if you haven't got, that it's worth adding. And the other thing, of course, now is we've got creator mode. Yes, some of us have got it, some of us haven't, some of us have got it and don't know we've got it. It's that new thing that comes in where if you go onto someone's profile and you see a little video appear behind their headshot and it disappears. It's creator mode, and it's another one of those things that arrived and they didn't bother telling you. It's on your dashboard, so when you can locate your dashboard on your LinkedIn, it's easier on the app because it's very obvious on the app. And it will say, if you've got it, creator mode off. Oh, you've got it. So when you go and turn it on, you can do a few things, add in some hashtags, but you can also record that video on your app. It's worth looking at. But again, it's another thing that has just come in from LinkedIn under the radar. Haven't told anyone about it. I'm sat on the fence as to how useful it is, but for some people, yeah, I think it could be quite useful. But one of the things it does do is it rearranges the order of your sections, and your activity in your feature section are now pushed to the top. You haven't got a feature section, it's not going to be there, is it? So yeah, I definitely suggest that feature section is something that you should add. As for the number, say, you know, on my screen, obviously I can see about 2.5. Yeah, people aren't going to scroll. I think you get 5 or 6 and it says see all. People are not going to bother doing that, so I wouldn't waste too much time putting any more than about 4 or 5 up there.
Tony, I'm seeing more and more posts on LinkedIn and less articles. So is that an indication that LinkedIn want more posts, less articles?
They are trying to. So yeah, the next section is about that sort of thing. But I'll ask you a question now. Is that they've increased the character count on a post from 1,300 to 3,000, which means that's now impinging upon the lower end of the article side of things. So they are sort of doing that, but they've tripped over themselves, as LinkedIn do on a regular basis, because the recent report I had says that the sweet spot for posts is 1,000 characters. So actually less than the original number and nowhere near the 3,000. When you convert it back using some, you know, average number of characters in a word and average words per minute read, it means that it's just under a minute's read. That makes perfect sense to me, because attention spans mean if you're going to use the 3,000 characters, it's a 3-minute read. I'm not reading it. I'm going to get bored. And a lot of people putting out these nice long posts. It's not working. People are just not engaging. And if you've got a call to action at the bottom of your post, a lot of people aren't getting there because they just haven't got the time or the attention span to read that. So posts, they are pushing posts. Articles, the biggest problem with articles is that when you post an article, the reach on articles, if you just post an article and that's it, it is very, very poor. So you won't see many articles floating around because people aren't doing them. So they are doing longer posts because LinkedIn had given them this ability to do so, but it kind of, you know, they are tripping themselves up because, you know, I read a lot of posts, and if I start having to start scroll down, then I'm starting to lose interest in them. So if you're going to use posts, yeah, sweet spots, a bit like video. I will talk to you about video. Again, 1 minute is probably a very good point whereby you should be coming to an end. So yeah, be active or fade away is continuing on what Vaibhav said. Posts, yeah, posts. We just discussed it. It's probably the most common way of people communicating on LinkedIn, most common activity. There's about 7 or 8 different ways of doing them. But yeah, they are the daily thing that people do. Yeah, they do them in various degrees of effectiveness, to be honest with you, because the LinkedIn algorithm is a bit of a beast. And if you don't understand how it works, then you could actually end up tripping over yourself on a regular basis. But yeah, posts by means is the thing that I see most in my feed. Articles, less so, as Vaibhav says. Actually, when you look at articles, the sweet spot is in the region of 500 to 700 words. So again, we're not talking a massively long read because the attention span thing gets in there. If you're a blogger, some of you may be, some of you might not be, but if you're a blogger, you can repurpose your blog into LinkedIn. Best practice is to wait about a week after you've done it onto your blog site, put it onto your LinkedIn, but you must do 2 things. You must change 1 line of text and 1 image, or LinkedIn will see it as a duplicate content. Duplicate content equals minus reach. Simple as that. So to avoid that, definitely just do a couple of changes. If you're doing it from scratch, yeah, aim, you can do them longer. I was saying, but I know the sweet spot at the moment time is between 500 and 700. I have a mixture of words and images, again, to break it up for people so it doesn't look like just a diatribe to try and read through. And again, I do always do two things. I'm putting it out there. It's something that you might want to consider doing. My headlines tend to be around a question. I'm looking for engagement on this, and therefore the last line of my articles will always be a call to action as well, because I want people to get engaged with them. Therefore, by asking questions and asking people to do things, there's more likelihood that that's going to happen. Downloads. Now, this is one version of posts that people don't use very often. So to increase your reach on a post, you can do 3 simple things. You can add an image to it. That will give you 10 to 20% reach increase. Add a video, 20 to 40% increase in your reach. Add a document, 40 to 60% increase in your reach. But people don't even know what it is. So actually, when you go onto your homepage and you start a post, you've got the icon for image, video, and then there's a document. When you click on it, it opens up. All it's asking you to do is to tell it where the document is on your desktop. But when it goes out on your feed, it allows anyone who can view it to download it directly to their desktop as a PDF. So it's ideal for notices, announcements, hints and tip sheets, that sort of thing. But also, and this is not my idea, one of my clients come up with this idea, but they're quite right. They listen to my training and say, well, you're telling us, don't do long posts because attention span, blah, 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 and that downloads get great reach. So what they've done, and quite rightly so, they've done a little small intro as the post, and then attached a document with the main part of it on there. Because they're downloading it to their desktop, they can then read it anytime they particularly want to as well. Going back to that, anything in your feed, you can save. Okay. 2 good things here. So if you see something going through your feeds and you haven't got time to read it, which basically is most of the time the longer ones, 3 little dots at the top, first option to save. It saves it. To retrieve it from your home page, you go in and just under who's viewed my profile on that, you'll notice that there's a my items, or it could be saved items still, depending on how they are going with the update. In there, you'll notice there are saved items, and it will then store everything that you've stored in there for you to look at your leisure. And then the top 3 dots, the first option then is to unsave it. Not an English word, but of course it's an American platform. So you can then save them to look at your leisure later on. So if you are going to go down the lines of doing a longer post, it's always a good idea to let people know at the beginning of it how long it's going to take to read. And therefore, they can immediately then go and save it and watch it later. So yeah, documents, really, really useful, getting lots of reach, and people just aren't using them. So they're kind of a bit disruptive as well in that respect, because you don't see many of them. And then the final thing, discussions in groups. Yeah, another victim of Microsoft and their takeover and rehashing. Very strong pre-2016. I don't know if anyone here ran groups. I got a group where we got a £30,000 contract. We're working together as a collaboration through the group, because all the group's messages were being pulled through to all the members. It was highly interactive. It was really, really useful. LinkedIn stopped that when Microsoft took them over, and notifications from groups by default just didn't happen. You can change it. If you go into any of the groups you're in, you'll notice that there's a bell up near the top. It's a notification. You click on that and it gives you some options. You can then choose what level of messaging you're going to get from that particular group. So I concentrate on a few groups, and I got it set to highlight. So when I get highlights come through my feeds, I can then interact with them. It also means I put stuff out through those groups and people see it and interact with that as well. Then there's really stuff to do with discussions, but there's another little trick in groups which works really, really well. Now, I know some of you in the room will be, go on, Mike, before I say anything.
So when I joined LinkedIn ages and ages ago. I just joined groups left, right, and centre because they sounded like a good idea, and I'm still in those groups, but haven't really looked at them for ages. So 2 quick questions, if I may. If I rationalise my groups, but just by leaving all the ones that I'm in, is that going to show up anywhere and look crap? And secondly, how do I then work out which are the best groups to rejoin so I'm optimally looking in the right groups now, as opposed to just the join everything approach that I had in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I put my hand up in the air. When I heard you could join 50 groups, I joined 50 groups. Didn't have the time to be active in 50 groups, so it became a bit pointless. And also, when you go into those groups, have a look at the feed. Some of them you'll find there's been nothing in it for literally years, because when LinkedIn was decapitated, the group wise, it disappeared and people just didn't bother putting anything into the groups. So you might have good numbers, lots of members, but there's no activity. Those are groups I would definitely not have anymore. No point in having them. Others you'll find are quite vibrant still. But I go around looking at groups as, where is my avatar going to be? So for me, it could be geographical, it could be by industry, it could be by job title. Those are the groups that I'm active in. Those are the ones I go into because I know are potentially my clients are in them. Those are the ones I concentrate on. When I do my teachings, yeah, I say to people, get 4 good groups where your avatar is highly likely to be, and just rotate them on a weekly basis. Go and do a little bit of activity every week in there. Go and have a look at the posts. Go and add to the post. Start your own post. But going back to that, as a standard LinkedIn user, you're not allowed to talk to your third line connections. LinkedIn wants you upgrade, and they want you to upgrade into premium, and you get the fabled in-mail, okay, which means you can then send a message to a third line connection. First of all, they have to accept it. And in my sort of years of doing this, and I have been a premium member for quite a while, acceptance level's fairly low because it's no different to a cold call. They don't know who I am. Therefore, why the hell should they accept it? I get about an 8% uptake on my email. But if I find a third line connection in a group and I click on their profile and I think, actually, yeah, that's someone I wouldn't mind connecting with, go back to their post and you'll notice that you are able to comment. So when you go in there and comment, tag them in it. So if I see it, you know, from Joe Blogs, I go, yeah, really interesting article at Joe Blogs, it will tag them in. They get a notification which tells them that Tony K. Silver has made a comment within their post. They then become aware of me. Rather than them being a stranger, any approaches I make, I will foster the relationship for a little bit longer, make them sort of, you know, aware that I can give value, etc. And it happens pretty much evenly. They'll either ask me or I'll ask them, would it make sense for us to connect? And then it's a very simple procedure. 95% success rate I get doing that, we got versus 8% from sending emails. Emails are going to cost me £47 a month. Or I think that's roughly what they charge nowadays for a premium. Where by using the tactic I've just doesn't cost you a penny. Takes a little bit longer, but hey, it's also more likely they're going to say yes because they've heard a little bit from you. You made some comments in their posts, etc. I do believe groups is definitely worth something you should be looking at, but I'm never going to tell you that you should be spending a lot of time doing it. It's just one of those things that sits there that is useful to use.
So if I go through and leave all of those old groups, LinkedIn's not going to mind, and the group's not going to mind. It's not going to go.
They're not going to know. They're not going to know. It's the same way when you remove a connection. They don't know. They're not informed that you've removed them. It's not. You notice all of a sudden that, you know, the number of connections you've got may have gone down 1. Someone's disconnected from you. You don't know who. To be honest with you, that's fine by me. And I do it on a regular basis to other people. So yeah.
Thank you.
Tony, regarding the posts, is there a way to schedule posts in advance without using a third-party website?
No.
And secondly, I'm seeing a lot of posts that seem more like something you'd see on Instagram or Facebook, and they get a lot of comments or like. Again, is that where it's heading, more to that type of content?
You're quite right. The only way of scheduling stuff is through your Hootsuites and your buffers of this world. And if you do, You are contravening the user agreement because it's third-party software. Will LinkedIn close your account tomorrow? No. They might get around to it at one time, but they're not really worried about that side of things. It's kind of ineffective because immediately LinkedIn spot that you're using third-party software to schedule your posts, they will decrease your reach anyway. So they've already given you a slap round the head for doing it. There is nothing built into it, unfortunately. It's one of the things we're speaking to them about potentially doing, but nothing as yet. The mix, yeah, I think it's okay. I would have said this 5 years ago. I think it's okay now to do those sort of slightly more light-hearted videos. You are seeing a lot of people viewing. There's some comments on these sort of things. But as I say to everyone who does those sort of things, how much business do you get out of that? And the answer is never, ever positive. It's always, oh, no. Well, yeah, so it's very nice, it's very entertaining, but it's not actually giving you any business because it's not business related. Be informational and discussional in most of your posts. Those are the ones that get the comments. Those are the ones that get the discussions going. Those are the ones that LinkedIn spot and then increase the reach on. You can get 50,000 views on your cat video. Yeah, vanity. But yeah, but again, it's all part of the Microsoft wanting to do. But ultimately, I'm worried about results and claiming I've got so many views on something and likes, views and likes, yeah, vanity. Comments and engagement, that's what I'm after. Okay, so that is activity, yeah, and be consistent. It doesn't work if you have a go at it for a while then stop. LinkedIn's algorithm will spot it. Also, your followers and your connections will spot it as well. The algorithm currently is being changed, but these rules are currently still in place. When you do some posts on LinkedIn, try not to do more than one a day. The reason for that is that when you put out a post, LinkedIn analyzes it, okay? They look at it, okay, not a person, it's a bot, and they score it. And they will give it a score between 2.5% and 12.5% of your connections will have this file out to them. So when you post, that's the number of people that may see it. You can increase that, you can decrease that. But it's nowhere near enough. And what LinkedIn are doing at the moment in time is saying, well, when you put out a post, the second post, they'll either stop the reach on the first post or certainly slow it down while they look at the second one. More often than not, they're stopping it. If you put out a third one, yeah. Now, a study I had from one of the group, and again, when I quote this study, I see it every night on TV. I don't know why I watch adverts on TV, but a lot of the ladies' adverts say, 73 out of 84 ladies said yes to this product. And I'm thinking, you're L'Oreal, you can only get 84 people to say to go into a survey. This guy literally does hundreds of thousands of posts. He's a massive company, and he gives us this report. And the report said he put out a post. It was 4 lines. It had a picture, and it got X amount of views and comments, etc. When he put out a second one 4 hours later, the combined reach of the 2 posts was only 70% of the reach of the first one, immediately causing issues. When he put out a third one, the combined reach of all 3 was less than half of the first one. So don't stop doing it, but be aware that you're going to cripple the reach of your previous posts. So the time gap comes into play here. If you're doing one first thing in the morning, yeah, you can pretty much get away with doing one later in the afternoon if you have to. But I would suggest that, one a day is probably, one a day is what I do. I tell my clients between 2 and 3 a week. Doing 2, I see people, certainly during the pandemic, they were putting out posts every half an hour, hoping people would no, they were just crippling themselves by doing it. So yeah, don't put out too many posts. Make them informational, make them discussional, get people engaged. And the other thing is, if someone does come back and might pass a comment on your post, for Christ's sake, go back in and answer them. And when you do, tag them back in as well. Okay, vital. It's all picked up. Because if you get some conversations going 2 ways for a little while, LinkedIn then calls out a discussion, and they will actually increase the reach organically anyway on that sort of post. So yeah, lots and lots of views, but they're not going to ever increase your reach because of that. lots and lots of comments and discussions going on, yeah, LinkedIn thinks this is great and they're going to push it out further. So that's the sort of thing that you need to be doing. Hope that answers your question. So yeah, I would just say have a look and see how many you've done this month. Go through it. You know, once I get this sent to you, fill in the little orange dot and see what you're doing based upon what we've just discussed, and have a look at the balance of what you're doing. And it's about consistency. It doesn't have to be more than 2 or 3 posts a week, because if you get really highly engaging posts, you'll be answering comments on that every day anyway, so you won't have time to do it. But yeah, just have a little look. Articles. So the trick on articles is this: when you post an article, whether it's, you know, I'd say it's repurposing from a blog, the reach goes edge of a cliff. It's a known fact that the reach on articles is fairly slim, to put it mildly. This is why a lot of people don't bother doing them. But actually, they're positioning documents. They're a great way of actually saying you're an expert in your field. The trick, quite simply, is when you post your article, it has its own unique URL. Go in the following day. So again, not doing it twice in one day. The following day, highlight it, cut and paste that into a post. Now, the post can be along the lines, quite simply, you know, as you probably didn't see my recent article, here's a link to it. Okay. Because it's a link from LinkedIn back into LinkedIn, there is no reduction in reach, there's no issues whatsoever. Because it then becomes a post, there's a lot more people liable to see it. And therefore, you can now move the article from being, yeah, very ineffective to having the same effect as a post. And if you ask questions in there and get comments going on an article, again, LinkedIn will increase your reach on that. Yeah, just have a look and see how often you're using those various different things. I mentioned social proof earlier. Social proof is very powerful. It's really useful in the about section. But of course, there is a section down the bottom of LinkedIn called recommendations. And the recommendations is social proof that people, and I've just put something out today literally about this, that, you know, very, very British. We don't like asking. I don't know why. Because ultimately, you know, this is waving the flag for ourselves. Don't worry about it. You know, people are happy to give you recommendations if you ask. It doesn't have to be a client. It can be someone you've worked with, someone you've given value to at networking meeting, whatever it is. But have a think about this. I put a search, or I don't, someone who doesn't know you puts a search into the LinkedIn search engine. You and a few others come up. They're going through comparing. They get down to the recommendation side of it. Yeah, recommendations. This is a very bad example, but actually, as I said before, it's not too far from the average. The average I've seen over the years is between 3 and 5, and they're a couple of years out of date. The thing is, if someone's doing that comparison, they land on that, and you are the average person, but then you've got someone else who's got 30, 40 recommendations, and the last 2 are in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Human nature says that you're going to side with the person who's got the more recent ones. Don't give people the opportunity to make a wrong decision. You probably are the perfect fit for them, but the data in front of the screen they're looking at is telling them otherwise. So it's always nice to aim high, and someone we all know because she was here recently, Michelle Mills Porter. Yeah, she actually bucks the trend because she doesn't go and ask for recommendations. She just delivers such a great service that she gets them naturally. But if someone lands on hers as a comparison, 538, you know, I aspire to that. I'm about a third of that. Yeah, July and August this year. So again, it's all recent stuff. Anyone landing on that will be impressed, and that will blow virtually everyone else into the weeds. She's probably in the top 1% or 0.5% on LinkedIn for doing it. As I say, just get to 10. If you just get to 10 recommendations and make them in the last 6 weeks, the chances are if someone is doing that comparison on you, you're going to win. you're going to be better than at least 90% of the other people on LinkedIn, because they just don't ask. Don't be shy. Go and ask. You know, I'm sure you'd ask for testimonials on your website and things like that. This is no different. And actually, the great thing about it is that when you receive them back from people, there are two things that you can do. You can ask them to amend it if they haven't quite understood what you said, or there's a glaring grammatical error, or as I had the other day, someone missed a word out and it just didn't make any sense at all. But also, you have a little button, a little toggle, which actually means that you can show it or you don't show it. So never delete them, because they always add towards your total. But if you've got one that's reasonably weak, maybe only 2 or 3 lines is just very generic, you can turn it off. You don't have to show it. You just make sure the 2 that are seen by the outside world are pretty good ones. So yeah, it's very powerful. As I say, not, you know, just 90% of people I look at just don't even get to 10. So go, you know, go impress the world, get to 10. Yeah. So again, another task. Make a list of 3 people you can ask next week. You know, if I went and did a snapshot now on everyone's profiles and looked at their recommendations and go back in a week's time, what am I going to see? Have a look and think who you can ask. Just get those numbers moving forward. So yeah, there's a task for you. You know, let's just say the next meeting we come to. You know, I might just say, well, how many more recommendations have you got since we had this meeting on the 20th? I love to everyone to say, yeah, it's only 3. I've got more than that. But yeah, let's have a look and see how we get on with that little task. Right, some additional nuggets, and then we will have a sort of little Q&A at the end for anything that comes to mind. So, how to search in the standard free version. I'm sure you're all aware Sales Navigator exists. It's a very, very, very good product. Very, very complicated product. It takes time to learn. It takes time to use. Time is things that a lot of people I speak to don't have. It's also £80 odd a month, and therefore it's quite a large outlay if you're not using it. But again, you know, we have this problem with people doing generic searches. So here's one that I often do on stage. Human resources. I click on people, you know, 13 million. And I then joke on stage about, you know, there's a Ferrari in the car for anyone who can go for that list for me. Of course, that one's got 13 million. They're going to die before the end of it. There's no one's ever going to be able to do it. So it's a pretty safe bet. I have a red Italian sports car in the car park. It's just not a Ferrari. So yeah, human resources, look at the people side of things, but then go and click the all filters button. This then gives you a set of 10 filters. You haven't got to use them all. And actually, the first one I would say you must use, because you know your first line connections, and why the hell are you searching for them unless you're doing some research? You can't talk to your third if you're actually a standard user, but the second line are available to you. Also, a lot of us operate in the UK mainly, so again, that could be a good one to put in there. Back one. There are 3 or 4 others, and what I tend to do is I choose an industry. At the bottom of there's one that gives the ability to put the name of the person there. Well, you don't know them, but it also has their job title in there. So I just re-emphasize to LinkedIn at this stage that I want to talk to a director. I want to talk to someone who can make the decision, who can actually pay me for my services. I click the button, and then that number tumbles. I can normally take something from like 13 million. Probably in about 90 seconds, I'm down to below 50. And therefore, that is something that you can use as a prospect in this. Don't just go around pushing the connect button. Go and have a look at their profile, see if it is actually someone that you want to engage with. And then when you send connection request, I add a little note to it. I say, hi, I've just done a highly targeted search on LinkedIn, and you come up in the top 50 people. Fancy a chat sometime. That's all I do. Fancy connecting and having a chat. It strokes 2 things: their ego. Ooh, I'm in the top 50. Also, interest. Well, how did that happen? What is it, top 54? Tony, how did you do that? And 1 in 10 people come back to me and ask me exactly that question. They're now in a conversation with me. That, to me, is a useful way of doing things. I haven't had to pay £80 a month to do it. And the reason I also say don't go connect is that LinkedIn are monitoring this. So if you're sending out lots of connection requests, okay, they've limited it to 100 a week at the moment in time. I really suggest you don't send that many out because you just can't engage that many people. But they monitor it. And if people do not respond, so they haven't accepted, but they also haven't declined, it sits in the box. When you go and look at manage, if you go into my network at the top, and then you go click on the manage button, you have two tabs. One is the ones that you've received. The other one is the ones that you sent. Go and have a look in there, because actually that's where it lists them. I dealt with a guy about 3 months ago who said, I went into it and went through this as part of the process. Over 100, up to 5 months old. I said, you not had a message from LinkedIn? He said, yeah, I didn't really understand it and I couldn't actually access it for a week or so. Yeah, you were put in LinkedIn jail. Quite simply, LinkedIn have looked at the number and have decided that you must be spamming people. I said, I can understand why. Just clear it out. Against everyone that you send, in there was the withdraw button. I suggest you don't let it build up like he did, because LinkedIn could well send you that message, and you then, if you didn't do much about it, you could find your account closed. Don't become a spammer without you actually knowing that you're doing it. That's why I never push connect. There's always a reason to connect, and I keep an eye on it. And if it drifts past a month, they're like you, they're not going to respond anyway, so I just withdraw it. You can then reapply to that person 3 weeks later, but my suggestion probably is that unless it's someone you know just bloody well forgotten, then they're like, there's no point in doing it. But yeah, you can turn a very large search in the standard LinkedIn search into quite a small number, which you can then use as a prospect list. As I say, recommendations, we've been through that. It really is powerful. I really suggest that you go and think about those people you can ask. Who's viewed your profile?
Tony, sorry,
Yes.
can I just jump in with a quick question, Tony, on the search?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned double quotes and Boolean stuff earlier on. Is there somewhere where we can find out the nits and grits of those technical bits?
I just look up Boolean searching, but bottom line is, if someone puts in business coach, okay, into the search engine, it looks for the word business and it looks for the word coach. They don't have to be next to each other. If you put speech marks either side of that, speech mark, business coach, speech mark, it will look for it as the two words together within the actual profile. You can then put a plus or minus, so you might put, business coach plus a certain area, or plus, the plus and minuses will actually add in and take away certain criteria. So you're actually being highly targeted on it. And if you did that on searches, it will drop the numbers down a lot lower as well. But people just don't do it, and that's the problem.
Thank you.
From your homepage, yeah, on the left-hand side, who's viewed my profile. One of the reasons some people say to me, oh, should I upgrade to premium so I get the last 90 days? I'm going, why do you want to do that? Because in my eyes, if I don't respond to someone that's looked at my profile in 2 days, it's kind of gone cold. They've probably forgotten they looked. And certainly being able to access someone who did it 90 days ago is about much use to stock at Fireguard, waste of time. I say to people, in the standard, you will see, obviously I'm not standard, you see the last 5. This one here is grayed out. Again, I go in there, and if I see the word second next to someone, I go and look at their profile. And then I will potentially send them a message or send them a connection request. But again, I'll refer back to it. Hi, David, I see you recently looked at my profile. Would always love to find out how you found me in the first place, and was something on my profile that we can have a chat about. I refer back to it. By doing that, I've never had anyone balk at it, because they've started the process by looking at my profile in the first bloody place. Actually, if I looked at my profile, it's a potential customer sat in there. Why would I not go in and engage with them? I'm going to. I do it twice a day. And I do it morning and afternoon to make sure I just do capture that last 24 hours. As I say, I am premium. I have got 90 days worth. I've never used it, apart from demonstration purposes, showing to you why you don't need it. So go and have a look in there. Who's viewed your profile? It could be your next client who just hasn't been brave enough to actually send you a message. Very few people kick back on you engaging with them because they've started the process. Said before, groups, yeah, go and have a look at your groups. it's definitely something I think will come back. We are pressurizing. There might be something in the latest algorithm that will be means that they'll be more effective. I won't know the actual output once today, the 20th, probably for about 2 weeks. But when I do, then obviously I will be letting my clients know that. So David, you'll be getting that PDF at some stage. Events, yeah. Mastermind group. Well, that sounds like a good event to go to. I want to go to that one. I am, because it's the one that I set up for David. So down the left-hand menu again, if you're running events, and this could be, as we are running a mastermind, it could be a one-off event, it could be online, it could be a webinar, it could be only half hour long. But if you go into that tab on the left-hand side and push the plus button, the template is very, very easy to use, very easily understood. I would never, ever use it as the only way of promoting an event, okay? Never. But actually, as a backup to the main way of promoting an event, it's really quite strong. And when you created it, you have a share button. So you can share it in a post, you can directly message people, you can actually send it out on Twitter, and you can actually put it out on Facebook as well. So there's lots of ways of actually sharing your event from the event. It doesn't take long to put together, it needs a couple of images, you know, a few words from you, clicking a few buttons, and deciding whether it's public or private, and then pretty much bung the link in there, and away you go. I use it for my events. The workshops I'm running currently are all listed on there. Well, most of them are. And I've got people booking on from there, so that it does work. It isn't the only way I go about promoting them, but it's another way. If you don't know about it, it's useful to have a look at. Settings, yeah, settings. When you go to the Me button at the top, you normally scroll down and you click on My Profile, and off you go and have a look at your profile. Just scroll down a couple of clicks further and you'll see that there's the settings and preferences. Go in and have a look at that. Spend about 20 or 30 minutes, not all in one hit, but just go through it and making sure that it's all set up properly. The one I always point out to people is, what's the emails that are attached to your LinkedIn profile? Have you got access to them anymore? I know that when I set up mine in 2006, it doesn't exist anymore. So the chances of me having access in that email address, if LinkedIn had a hiccup and deferred to that email address, I'd be a little bit buggered. So again, delete the ones you don't need. You can add your phone numbers in, you can change bits, change passwords, etc. View profile options. Yeah, there's plenty of stuff in there. I would just have a little look through. It will enhance yours and your viewers' experience with your profile. Connection request, yeah. I know we're coming nearly to the end. Always personalize it, please, unless you happen to be opposite the person at the time when you're doing it or talking to them online. If someone sends me a connection request which isn't personalized, my first thought is to delete it, and that is what most people do. So yeah, personalize it. It might just be a quickly, I met you recently at this event, thought it might be a nice idea to connect, etc. But don't not personalize them. Video, yeah, this is just a little reminder that video is really, really well indexed by LinkedIn, but there are rules. Yeah, 2 minutes is the point at which LinkedIn then start to reduce the reach. Once you go over that, they start ebbing away, ebbing away, ebbing away. The other thing, it defaults it to mute. So when you see a video going through your timeline, it's a bit like, there is no audio unless you go onto it and click it and turn it on. Don't rely on people doing that. Go and put some subtitles on there. I use a bit of software called Get Subly. Again, it's just one of many. It gives me 10 free minutes every month. And actually, if I'm putting out short videos, that's probably enough for me for the month. I don't ever pay them or need to pay them a penny. It has pretty basic editing, but it's better than LinkedIn. So I can put my subtitles at the top, across the middle, down the bottom. I can change the margins, change the font, change the color, change the size of them. But what it does mean is that when I put out posts on a video, people get to either see or hear what I'm saying. And LinkedIn like it, as I say, you get extra indexing points for using it. But once you go over 2 minutes and it starts to drop, again, attention span, are people going to listen for 2 minutes? Couple of recent updates before I come to a close. Yeah, when you have in your messaging feed now, for everybody, you'll notice there's a camera appeared in the top right-hand side. And yeah, you can now create a video meeting. You have two options. You click on it and it'll ask you some questions, or you can go and schedule a meeting. They're getting on Zoom's territory here. So how about go and look at it, have a little play with it. It's been rolled out, so if you haven't got it yet, it's coming. Like everything on LinkedIn, it does take them a little while to get everything out, but there's 774 accounts to do it too, so it's understandable. And then the other one, if you've got the services, again, just underneath the top part of your section, you'll see you have an area where you can add services that you provide. You can now get reviews for them. Again, just come in recently when you go. So this is my services. It tells me, a little bit of blurb about me. These are the ones that I've chosen. Only downside is that you have to choose from a list. You can't invent them, unfortunately. But I've got 20 credits. I've sent out 17. So I've got sent out 3, and I've already had 1 back. Have a look at it. It's coming in. It could be quite useful. One major flaw already is that I had one responded to. I never got a notification for it. So I had a review in there and I didn't know. But now I do, and I need to look. I can then point people at it so people can then go and look at. It's another way of, a bit like a testimonial of people saying that what you do is being useful to them. And then finally, the metric I use for working with my clients is what is your search number today, mainly because the SSI score is completely flawed, is inaccurate, is a waste of time. I don't spend any time on it whatsoever. But the search appearance is real because it's updated every Thursday in the UK. When you click on this number, it opens up and it goes into, and it tells you some of the companies that did the search, also give you a breakdown of the job titles of the people that did the search. So if they're the sort of people that will buy your services and products, really, really useful. If they're not, then maybe you might have to do some changes. 31.3, so during a working week, that's 62 people a day were finding me in that particular week. 62 people, it's nice. It means that, some of those people will engage with me. And I'd rather have that number than most people I look at who tend to be less than 100, etc. So yeah, it's by your activities and the way you set up LinkedIn, that number will soar. And yeah, for really popular people, it's 4 figures quite easily. But if you're languishing down below that number, knowing the quality of the people in the room, then potentially there might be some tweaking needs doing. And that, I think, pretty much is 11:30. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Tony. If we could thank him in the usual manner. Has anybody got any burning questions for him other than what was Buster barking at? Hey, we got a line. So go on, Tony, you can see people, so you.
Well, I'm going to go by my screen. Of course, I can change my screen, put it around on Zoom. But Mike's top left. So Mr. Grocott, fire away.
Company pages, question mark. So
Answer, how many followers have you got?
Followers or
Yes,
connections?
So go onto your company page, and at the top it tells you how many followers your company has got.
Right.
This is vital, okay? Because LinkedIn will put out your post from your company page to only 6% of your followers. Unless your followers is in the thousands, you're pretty much shouting in an empty room.
What, 6% of 8?
No, go down. How many other followers you've got?
Yeah.
So if you've got 1,000
8.
followers,
8.
Sorry,
8. I was trying to work out what 6% of 8 is.
2 dogs and a cat. Yeah, empty room. I'm afraid. Like a lot of us, unfortunately, unless you've got thousands of followers, posting for your company page is a bit pointless. Having a company page, yes, it's a tick box exercise, mostly used by people to find out who works within the company. You can have showcase and product pages on there. They are trying to make it better. But as I say, if you do post from it, you need a strategy whereby you and your employees get involved in it. Otherwise, it is shouting in an empty room.
Okay, so at the moment then just have some basic content on there and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't spend an awful lot of time on that. As I say, growing followers is not that easy. It takes a bit of time. All has changed. I can't remember who was next.
Thank you.
It was Peter, wasn't it? Yeah, Peter then Vabab.
You mentioned on the recommendations that you don't have to show them all.
No.
Where's that setting? Because I can't see it.
Well, when you see them come through,
Mm.
when you click on the edit button, okay, which is the pencil always on LinkedIn, it has two things. One is that you can actually ask for a change to it, and the second one is there's a toggle switch which says show or hide, and therefore once you hide it and save that, it will not show it in your recommendation. Still counts towards the overall number, but it doesn't show.
Quick note.
Got it. Thank you.
Can I ask you, Peter, why you wouldn't want people to see your recommendations?
It was mentioned and I didn't know where the toggle was. It's not something I might do, but it just frustrated me because it was a detail that I'd missed.
Detail, David, you should know that. My bad.
Some of the older ones I might want to get rid of, actually.
I might have missed it because I was deleting 6 months of connection requests. Is there a way to see who's viewed my profile without paying for it?
Only in what I told you earlier. Just go in twice a day, and you will see the last 5 people that did. Otherwise, you have to pay 47. It's just a bit of discipline. It's just a little, I go in, and if they're all first line connections, that's it. I'm out. I'm out in 2 seconds. But if there's some second line connections in there, then I will actually go and have a look at their profile.
Okay, and then what are the advantages of getting the paid membership other than being able to see who's viewed it?
Give me the £47 a month instead, please.
Okay, fine.
It's probably better use of it, to be honest with you. Alan.
Yeah, sorry, just on that creator mode, is that worth having on?
I think it's a very individual thing. If you're going to have the creator mode on, then you really must record the video, because that's one of the strongest points of it. Unfortunately, it gives you the option to have 5 hashtags, and it says talks about. So for us as speakers, that actually quite makes sense, but the wording's a bit American. But they're not clickable. So they're in faint grey text, so that doesn't work. When I look at someone's profile, they immediately put the feature and the activity at the top in creator mode. I actually want to look at the about section, so I've got to scroll down. So actually, the great thing about it, it's a mode. You can turn it on and off to your heart's content. Mine's mainly off at the moment in time. But it's individual. I have to say, have a look, see what you think. Some people have found it really useful. Others have gone, oh my God, not another update.
Is there an example where someone's got it so I can see exactly what it looks like? Because I can't say I've come across it.
I've got it.
I've got it.
You got it on at the moment?
I will turn it on after this session. There you go.
I've got mine on at the moment. If you want to have a look at mine to compare, I've turned it on just to see if it makes any difference. I don't know.
I must admit, I did for a while, and it didn't make an awful lot of difference. And my preference, funny, I was talking to a lot of people, was to actually, they wanted to see the about section first. But they're trying to get the activity and the feature section. They're trying to get that sort of emphasized. So it's not a bad thing, but I love the fact it's a mode. I don't have to have it. It's not a case of having it on permanently or having the old version. I can do what I want with it, and I think that's probably the best thing about it. Definitely.
Okay. And just I missed the bit where there's the Zoom meeting. Where's that?
When you look at in your message feed to anybody, so if you're messaging anyone in this particular room or anybody, when you look at the feed in the top right hand corner now, you will see that there's a camera. If it's come to you, as per everything in LinkedIn, as I say, it does take them a little bit of time to roll these things out. But yes, that's where it will appear, and then it goes into a screen and says, do you want to do the meeting now, or do you want to schedule a meeting, etc. Then it asks you what settings you want to use, what camera you want to use, etc., etc. Right up Charlie's street, you've got options on cameras and things in there, Charlie.
Oops. No, I can't see it.
Well, I'll say later on the day I'll share my screen and show you.
I've just investigated. You have to connect the Zoom app through it as well if you're using Zoom. Has it got a native video app or something in there now?
have a little play around with it. As I say, like most things on LinkedIn, it's used for some people, others it won't be.
Well, Tony, thank you. Sorry, has anybody else got a question? I mean, Paul, I was going to say, Paul, you've got an unusual client base. Has this been useful for you at all?
Just tell you, Tony, I mean, forgive me for, I've been doing it whilst you've been talking. I have completely transformed my LinkedIn profile. So many little things that you said, like on the about section, little things like I put gaps in between the lines and just taking those gaps out. Honestly, that has been an absolute brilliant session. I've actually done a new banner, all whilst you've been talking. Literally, I thought, I knew if I didn't do it today, I'd have this session and then get stuck into something else. So I just wanted to say thank you, because that has been such a useful session. Really, really helpful. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it. I know I've won then. If someone's got something out of it, then this hour and a half has been well worth the time.
Definitely. Absolutely brilliant, Tony. Thank you.
Please.
I know Faber asked this question earlier on about scheduling. He asked about whether you can schedule within LinkedIn, which I know you can't. But what about scheduling outside of LinkedIn? Is it a good thing to do, or is it better just to actually do them live straight into LinkedIn?
It's better to do them live, because LinkedIn know that you're using a scheduling tool and reduce the reach on your post. So you're actually doing yourself in by using a scheduling tool. So ultimately, if you think about it, a post is of the moment, so you can't really schedule it. I did for a while. I just did some like 12 posts. I just generically did them around, and I accepted when I was doing it, I was getting reduced reach. But the stuff that I really wanted to make impactful, then yeah, live is the route to go.
Pick up the phone.
Whoever needs to pick up the phone can pick up the phone whilst we go to Mike and then Weber.
It was my phone. So, quick question, Tony. How do you turn on that services thing, please?
I will drop a little video in later on that one, because I need to go into it. Basically, remember.
Okay. Thank you.
Weber.
I've got people on my profile who fit my avatar, but they barely use LinkedIn. So when I've contacted them, it's very difficult to even build a rapport because they don't use it. Is it worth just not bothering with them?
Not everyone does. As I say, there might be 32 million accounts in the UK. I would suggest 30-40% are just idle. They're not doing anything, in which case you can't, you're kind of wasting your time. If you can extract any information from the LinkedIn profile, but normally when you go into their contact details, there's nothing there. The amount of times I go to ring someone and the phone number's not even in their contacts, and I go, oh, why?
Oh, don't get me started on that. The number of websites and profiles now without a contact, and you have to go through a form and just next. Yeah. Ridiculous.
No, unfortunately, Babe, there's no, if they're not active on it, no, I would probably stay clear of them.
In that case, sorry, Alan.
So I was going to say, on the paid versions, Navigator, you can actually select posted in the last 30 days, so you know when you're searching, so you know they're active.
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant product. Don't get me wrong. I just think a lot of people don't understand that you've got to learn how to use it, and then you've got to have the time to use it properly. And if you don't have those resources, it can be £80 a month you regret spending.
Well, Brian, thank you very much indeed. I'd be surprised if anybody didn't get some value out of that. So really, really well done. Thank you. Yeah, Peter in lots of notes, but then we'd expect that for Peter. We'd expect that. I'd frankly be disappointed if you hadn't. And that's just after being on holiday. Tony, thank you very much indeed.